Antonescu here with final project for the shoulder dystocia class. We're going to look over the landscape of the pelvis, how a baby typically descends a pelvis, and we'll talk about movements people can do to help fix a shoulder dystocia, as well as maneuvers. So first off, here's a pelvis. On the side, you can see this is a neutral pelvis because the ASIS and pubic bone are in the same plane. This is the anterior portion. Here's the pubic symphysis, the ramus, turns into an ischial tuberosity. The posterior is the sacrum and coccyx. Ideally, the coccyx is mobile to the sacrum. Either side, we have the ilium, the iliac crest. Ischial spines, and the pelvis is mobile. There are joints, and these joints allow the pelvis to move. So they move every time we walk, change position. One neat thing about the pubic symphysis is the adductors come up and form the pubic symphysis as well as the rectus abdominis come down and form it. So what the rectus abdominis is doing and what the adductors are doing affect this joint here. So say one adductor is tighter than the other, it can cause pain because it will cause imbalance. So fascinating. I was a little sidetracked. Let's see. I think that's pretty good. So typically when a baby descends in the pelvis, comes in on the left, and it's kind of like a lock and key system. Baby can't just go all the way down because that's not the way it fits. So it has to come in, rotate, and it's rotating by hitting the pelvic floor will help the baby flex and go into the position it needs. And once the baby comes in, the shoulders will need to rotate. We'll unvelcro their hands so that baby can come out. Now if there's a shoulder dystocia, a shoulder is stuck on a bone. It could be the anterior shoulder stuck on the pubic bone. It could be the posterior shoulder. Back here it could be a head stuck on something. Right now we'll talk about shoulder dystocia. How would we know a shoulder dystocia is happening? Possibly the mom is saying things like, the baby's stuck. Oh, it's stuck right there. I can feel that it's stuck, and it is in the mom's body. There we go. So definitely listen to the mom. She's saying things like that. You can get her into different positions. Also, maybe the baby's head comes out, but the chin stays in. Okay. Called turtling. Maybe the baby comes out a little bit and goes back in, and then just isn't making progress. Something we could do right away, if the person isn't already on all fours, get them onto all fours. Just the act of getting onto all fours causes the pelvis to move and the joints to move, and that in and of itself can release the shoulders. If this isn't doing it, take the right leg and bring it up. Either the person can do it themselves or someone can help her bring it up. And once you're up here, this may do it, and if it doesn't, you can do some of the internal techniques we will talk about in this position. Other things moms can do. They can stand up, supported. Standing up, again, just getting into the act of standing changes the pubic bone and the ramus, and then maybe that will dislodge the arm. Also, gravity is helping the baby come out. Here you can also go into a supported squat, and this opens up the ischial tuberosities, and also gravity. Another one would be duck walking, which may not sound pleasant when you're in labor. But what that does is it opens up one side of the pelvis and then the other, and that might dislodge a shoulder. One other movement would be the McRoberts. It's best to be done on a firm surface, not on a squishy bed. Knees go to armpits. The mother can hold them, or someone can hold them for them. And at the same time, suprapubic pressure can be done. Because if the shoulder is stuck on the pubic bone, supra means above the pubic bone, and we're pressing in to help the shoulder dislodge and then come out. McRoberts is about the movement more than the technique, so if it doesn't work right away, go on to something else. Now we'll be looking at internal techniques. We will start with the Rubins. So if a baby is stuck, we'd like to get it into the oblique. Okay. So in the Rubins, we're collapsing a shoulder to make the width less. But first we'll do suprapubic rocking. So ideally you know which way the baby's facing, so you know which way you want them to rotate. And you press and you rock. And you can see even this doll is starting to roll in the direction I want them to go, so that they get into an oblique and can come out. If that rocking doesn't do it, then we can come in and find a scapula to push anterior to kind of collapse the shoulder in. It's usually going to be easier with the posterior shoulder because there's more room to get in, plus the posterior shoulder tends to come out before the anterior one. So you would go in, you find the scapula, bring it to the anterior, so you're basically rotating the baby by pushing the scapula. You get them in the oblique and hopefully they just come shooting out. If you can't get the posterior shoulder, then you could do the anterior shoulder. Another technique is Wood's corkscrew technique, and this one only works if the posterior shoulder is far enough down so that you can get it. Again, they start with suprapubic pressure, and his technique is a little bit complicated because you go in, you're doing suprapubic pressure, and then you're going to the posterior shoulder and you're bringing it posterior. So you're actually widening the shoulders. So you're doing two things at once, suprapubic pressure, and then you're getting to the anterior shoulder and rotating the baby into an oblique, and then hopefully they come out. So there's a lot going on with hands, but you could also have someone else doing suprapubic pressure. And again, this would assume the mom is, or the person is supine. You can do this technique, or even the Rubins, on all fours. You just have to think about which way would the baby rotate. And you probably wouldn't be doing the suprapubic pressure unless you reach around and bring it up. And you need a partner for that because it's a lot of hands needed. Okay. So if the baby has an arm behind the back, sometimes they can get stuck. So what we want to do, say we feel in, it's just like neck, 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 and we can't find an arm. We may need to feel in back, bend at the elbow, bring the arm forward, grab the wrist, and bring the arm up. So it's like bringing that forward and then up, just like you would with your own shoulder. You wouldn't want to try to do anything like this. So if you understand how your own body works, it'll be helpful before you try to do it on a baby in a pelvis. Whenever you're going for an arm and readjusting an arm, there is a risk of bone breakage. Babies' bones do heal quickly. Ideally, they don't break, but it can happen. So I'll show you again when the baby's not in the pelvis. So if there's an arm and back, coming back, bend at the elbow, bring it forward, grab the wrist, bring it up. And so Sometimes the posterior arm can also be behind, so you can bring that forward too and out. If none of these things work, and you can do one of these moves more than once. Like maybe you're doing the lunge, you're on all fours and do the lunge, and then you stand up and do some things, and then you get back into a lunge. Like it's not just one and done. You can go through them again. You are taking into account if you can see baby's head, how is it looking, is it pink, is it blue, is it black, and then you can kind of get an idea of how quickly baby needs to come out. Sometimes when baby's in there, the umbilical cord's attached and the baby's going to be fine, it's getting nutrients. There might be times when there's a cord, maybe that's too tight around baby's neck, so you could go in there and check for that as well. See if there's anything here making it so the baby can't come out. Last case resort, you can fracture the baby's clavicle. Some people believe by fracturing it, it will reduce the diameter, and other people think that will not happen because the baby's body will splint in another way. To break a baby's clavicle, it takes 20 pounds of pressure. It's a lot harder than it might seem. They are strong bones. A couple techniques I read about is to get your thumbs underneath the clavicle, and you can, they keep saying both thumbs. I don't know quite how you get both thumbs in mom. And then you can push it anterior, which then it's less likely to get into their lungs and hurt their veins. You could also push it superior, that's the one I just did. You can push it anterior, superior, and posterior in. Posterior in, you're more likely to get the lungs. So try not to do that one. But really try not to do it at all. Try the other things first. And I think that's all I have. Thank you very much.